What do you say? All right, let's do it. Let's do this Arctic military force. Only 1% make it. I mean, let's just acknowledge that this is, I mean, maybe it's clickbait, maybe it's not. I don't know. Let's see. We'll actually try to get the volume right and stuff.
The world's best Arctic fighters. The Norwegian Reconnaissance Squadron is an elite force only a few people would even consider. And out of those who do, only 1% make it through their selection. These guys are specialists at operating behind enemy lines for long periods of time. They're trained to go unnoticed in any terrain and to be completely independent. They're also the Norwegian force's best climbers. And just to give you an idea of how tough this unit really is, earlier this year they went on a mission where they spent 44 days outside in down to minus 30 degrees in some of the harshest Arctic conditions you can imagine, without any supplies and without being told how long the mission would last. This is a screened unit, meaning their identity has to remain a secret, and no...
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. 44 days, not told how long it's going to last. I guess no resupply or limited resupply. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I find interesting about these high selection units is that, you know, I look at the war in Ukraine and the Russian military, where their Spetsnaz and elite troops are pretty good, are trained to a pretty high standard relative to the global standard of you know, tier 1 special ops forces. And yet they have not proven to be a particularly outsized force on the battlefield, right? The sort of terrible nature of their largely conscript army, and the just good, again, not even like great, just like decent OPSEC and basic security of the Ukrainian forces have sort of thwarted them at kind of every turn. And, you know, I'll say that, you know, Ukraine obviously has their own special forces, and they're obviously doing their thing, but it does make you assess whether or not in a conventional environment, or maybe even in the counterinsurgency environment, right? Like U.S. special forces were not decisive in Iraq or Afghanistan. It makes you wonder if there isn't a little bit of a hang up on these sort of things. Like, at the end of the day, is it worth it, right? Like, can they get information that a satellite reconnaissance drones, other individuals, right, other methods cannot? That's the question, you know? And is it so valuable that it's worth grinding out and putting so many of your military's limited resources into these guys? Again, so a meta question that, you know, people at the general level should be asking.
No media has ever been allowed in, not until now, as I'm about to join the world's best Arctic fighters on a mission above the Arctic Circle and behind enemy lines.
Okay, Magnus, welcome to Norwegian Military Intelligence Battalion. Today you are going to visit the long range.
Okay, I'm going to say I am mildly bothered by all this hair back here. Like, dude, you're on camera. Like, trim up the back, man.
Range reconnaissance squadron, the LRPs, and do a mission with them.
A climbing mission,
I've heard. A climbing mission, a bit different from what you are normally doing.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for the cheer, Highland Heroes. Don't let Seth Zintak review a Star Wars game with Twilly and make a joke about tasting the rainbow. Listen, I can't control what Seth Zintak does. I can only break it down, man. He seems like he likes too much offbeat stuff to do a Star Wars game.
I guess when we get you geared up, it will be odds even. Your patrol has been tasked to support the rescuing of a downed pilot behind enemy lines.
Mm-hmm.
The pilot is last known position is in the area of... Okay,
all right, I'm just going to point this out. Is this a military grid? No, they're not showing him a military map, which may be a security thing. There's a security protocol. maps are valuable, and because it lets you see what your opponent sees, and it lets you can exploit tiny differences, tiny inaccuracies in the map. So it would make sense that for a civilian, they would probably provide them with a basically civilian map. Though it's, if you can read a military topographic map, you can basically read a civilian topographic map, especially if it's one like this with a lot of clear terrain that you can associate off of.
East Tindon here.
So the mission is to rescue the pilot, who should be somewhere in the area of East Tindon. We'll be transported into enemy's territory by car, where we get dropped off and have to make our way up the mountain as quickly as possible and unnoticed by the enemy. As soon as we have the pilot, we'll call for a helicopter to come fly us out.
Okay, FYI, in the real world, if a helicopter gets shot down somewhere, following it up with another helicopter, not a great call. This is actually one of the issues that Operation Red Wing, right, the biggest loss of life in this U.S. Special Operations community, occurred as a result of doing exactly this. A special forces team was inserted, right, came under fire, took some losses, and then the QRF, a quick reaction force team, was mobilized, and they came into the valley via a Chinook. That Chinook took RPG fire because it literally was surrounded by mountains, so it entered the range of RPG and was shot down. So unless you have these guys, the rescued element who, again, if you're talking about a 12-man patrol, they're probably not going to be able to establish security over more than a few hundred meters at a time. So you would actually want to probably realistically do a ground extraction to a safe location, or at least a location where the helicopter, the air assets felt they could insert more safely. Also, a helicopter crash site, you are going to be in a race against time. The enemy are absolutely going to be going to that site as well. And so it may be a case of extract with the pilot, destroy sensitive avionics, and get out. Or you may not even destroy the sensitive avionics. You may get out, you may get the pilot, secure any absolutely non-negotiable sensitive gear, and then just have an airstrike take out the helicopter.
Questions?
No questions.
The guys will take care of you.
Yeah, I hate the cold like a lot, so I would hate this. All right, well, they've definitely got their high-end helmets. They've got their Ops Core super high-cut stuff. What's interesting is that even though they have the high-cut helmets of a special ops and are meant to accommodate like Peltors or Comtacs or whatever, instead they just kind of have the old school bandana camo system. And I don't know if it's, again, a lot of military gear is meant to take the cold, but it probably isn't meant to take the Arctic cold. And so there may be some gear that just isn't going to work. And I could definitely see a battery-powered active headphones having very short battery lives because of the extreme cold. Okay, this is a really interesting vehicle. It definitely looks like some sort of very lightly armored combat vehicle. It's got a turret, a driver, it has a turret, a TC, a driver, but very light armor, if any. Maybe it looks like it could maybe take a small arms round, but totally open doors. This is kind of old school, or like the SEALs and Green Berets in the early days of Iraq would drive around in these like thin-skinned Humvees with the doors taken off. And, they would do all sorts of cowboy stuff. I mean, one of the things now is like, I understand that SEALs and Green Beret types like get extensive training in small unit tactics and are very good at it. But I think sometimes they do things because of the cool factor, and like taking the doors off your Humvees and having like M249s like hanging out of them seems like one of those things you did for the cool factor. But I could see it, you pull your own 360 security, I guess. But But inserting via one vehicle is pretty high risk. Again, if we've learned some lessons from this Russia-Ukraine war, it's that a lone vehicle is a vulnerable vehicle. File this under things that I would also hate. And again, I'm a backpacker who's done more than a couple of long hikes in my day. And even some not at elevations like this and not over terrain like this. But you know, my wife and I have covered, I don't know, we've had, I think our biggest day was like a 30-mile day, 20 something mile day. And yeah, never had a pack this big. I'm going to say this is looking probably 80 pounds, probably. And yeah, this just looks just awful.
Should I be aware of the surroundings? Like look around, do we need to be ready to, because now we're behind enemy lines.
Yeah, we just got a SIT update from our base. They have intelligence that says that there are enemy forces moving towards our position, and they're probably looking for the pilot as well.
And we also have to be.
So as we discuss this, what's interesting, okay, so what you're seeing here, let's back it up a sec. So you can see here they're at a sort of rest stop, and it looks like they have basically the command element is in the center. And that makes sense because this guy is probably their commander, since he said, hey, I just spoke to headquarters and they said XYZ. And here's someone else who's probably like an RTO, like a radio man or some other support person in the squad. Everyone else in the squad, you can't see them because they're both out of focus and probably in covered and concealed positions. They are pulling security. They're establishing a 360-degree security.
As well.
And we also have to be quick. Right.
Yeah, we have to pick up the pace, unfortunately.
I mean, these backpacks are like 35 kilos and that's no.
Yeah, so let's see. Okay, can someone do the conversion? 35 kilos is 70, 80 pounds, right? Sound about right?
Exaggerations, like we measured them before. My legs aren't that strong. I already feel it.
Wait, did they give this guy a real rifle? Yeah, that's a real M4.
But I'm going to try to keep up with you guys. How do we move without being noticed in this terrain? Because that's your kind of specialty, right?
Well, we try to stay in the low terrain unless we have like concealment in the fog and stuff like that. And as you can see around us now, the fog is coming in, so that's good for us.
Luckily.
Yeah, 77 pounds is like twice as much as what you'll carry in as a commercial backpacker. Probably a true alpinist, if that's what this guy is. You know, like Jimmy Chin and those guys, they're going to carry 200 pounds of gear because they need crampons and tents and food, and they need the anchors and lots of rope. So yeah, alpinists are going to carry a little more. So yeah, that's about right. 80 pounds, 77 pounds.
We're being picked up.
But yeah, that's twice of what you're going to carry as a commercial backpacker.
By a helicopter at the top.
I've done a few like training marches on hardball road or like very improved trails with 80 pounds. And that's not that bad when you kind of train up to it. It gets really bad when you're on unstable terrain, because imagine just like you've got regular legs, obviously, right? But like if you're, you can't train your joints to be stronger. You can't train your ankles to be stronger, right? Your bones, your joints, you have what you have. You can train your muscles to be stronger. You can improve your cardiovascular fitness. You can do some things to like gently strengthen tendons and things and prevent some injuries. But the reality is that if you add 80 extra pounds to someone, it's going to be easier. It's going to take less to roll an ankle, to pop a knee, to smash a hip. And on uneven terrain, you're always kind of walking like this. So it's easy to roll yourself with a rock. I'll tell you, even me, we don't have regular legs. We have mountain legs. Yes, there are many different kinds of legs. Unfortunately, they're all basically the same. The reality is that like when I, again, will backpack with almost any weight of any substance across uneven terrain, I bring hiking poles, right? And it gives me so much extra stability. That's what they're there for. They're not to distribute the load. They're there to give me stability when I walk, to ensure that I don't rip an ankle out of my socket, because the price of failure is so much worse when you have that much weight. But in a military patrol, you can't do that. You have to have hands-on weapon at all times.
For me, that's really the highlight. I've never been in a helicopter before, so. But first, we need to find the Firejet pilot.
Yeah.
That's priority number one. Riding the helicopter, that's priority number 2.
Yeah, I mean, I give this guy credit. First off, you're a professional climber, right? And pro climbers are no joke. These guys are serious. And you can see this guy's a cardio machine, because I mean, you can sort of see it in some people, right? Where they have such low body fat that they sort of look just a little like, their face looks bony, right? Their cheeks are just a little sunken in. Their cheekbones look a little prominent. That's a function of being really lean, something that characterizes cardio athletes, right? Because it's like every extra ounce of fat isn't making you faster, and it's adding weight to your body mass.
These guys have like a crazy high pace, and I've been told that I should look for enemies to the left. So the guy in the front, he's looking straight ahead.
Bingo, he's talking about pulling security, right? And he is, to their immense credit, right? One, I give them credit for bringing this dude along and for giving him like real combat roles, right? To say, hey, you're going to be, your sector is this sector. That's how this works. That's how these patrol bases work. I would be super curious to know just to what extent they're slowing their pace for him. I'll tell you, okay, to share a story, we at one point went on like a friendly bros camping trip, and like you go out Shenandoah, hike, camp a little bit, hang out. And some of us were like very experienced backpackers, and some of us were less so. And so we tried to like distribute the load in a way that felt like fair. And so one of our friends, who was very inexperienced and not very fit, we're like, hey, light backpack, we'll carry some of your stuff, just carry your backpack. And this dude decided at one point that he really didn't want to be on the trip, right? He was like, hey, we're only like 25 miles from our exit point. I don't want to camp another night, right? He was cold. So he starts hauling ass out of here. And it was awful, because I had a vastly larger backpack than anyone else. Not vastly. I had a substantially larger pack than anyone else. And definitely a larger pack than him. And so I was just heartened. I was just getting my ass kicked by this pace. And if you've never hiked at a pace, especially hiked at a pace with someone who doesn't carry your load, it's an awful feeling.
I'm looking to the left. The guy behind me is looking to the right. But I'm too out of breath to even like...
Yeah, and at elevation, it's so much worse.
I feel like my sight is kind of blurry.
ELT, yeah, this is definitely a training mission, 100%.
It was really exciting. If we keep this pace for much longer, I have to ask them if we can take a little break. The Firejet pilot needs to wait, otherwise I'm gonna die on the way up here. And it was crazy. We left like 1 a.m. Didn't sleep at all. We were supposed to sleep for like an hour, but I couldn't fall asleep. And we have very little food with us, and we're just gonna try to do this as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think, you already see he's already basically maxed out on the weight he can carry. And so, yeah, you want to like pre-eat a little bit and then just execute on your mission and get back, right? Minimal amount of food. This is absolutely a training mission. I don't think the Norwegian military is deployed in any like combat operations. I imagine they may be a little more active on like their border. Though I don't even know if they share a border with Russia, right? They just share the sea. Yeah. And if you've never done this, if you've never also done any backpacking, you realize that commercial backpacking, right? Daylight is a precious commodity because you can't safely hike at night, or it's really hard to safely hike at night. And okay, you guys share a border with Russia. Okay, so I imagine that there is a much stronger posture along that small border. But for him, excuse me, I gotta hydrate. Oh. Yeah, so yeah, they're not going to take him on a training mission with just a small border. And okay, let's keep going.
Get in, get out. And these guys are crazy fit, and we're soon about to like...
Oh yeah, so if you've done commercial backpacking, you know that daylight's such a precious commodity. So it's really common. We would really commonly wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. Just because you want to get your camp all packed up. You want to eat your breakfast, brush your teeth, use the bathroom, because when you reach what's called BMNT, and this is the military term, EENT. No, BMNT, right? BMNT is before morning nautical twilight, and it's the time where you can operate without night vision devices, right? There's a moment where the sun hasn't yet risen, but the brightness has risen to a point where you can operate safely, walk and shoot and stuff. And once you reach that point, right, that's when you've got to start hiking right there. In military operations, you want to do even more of your infiltration at night because it's harder for the enemy to see and engage you. If you have night vision, obviously, kicking off at 1 a.m. probably not going to happen.
Get our harness on and start.
Though he said he's only been on this thing 2 hours, and I think part of that is the weird Arctic day-night cycle, right? So 1 a.m. might be pre-dawn.
Actually climbing, and I think that's going to be really spectacular, but it's a very different climbing that I'm used to. These backpacks are around 35 kilos, so that's about half my body weight, and I don't know how I'm going to climb with that, and also with boots. It's like, these are very different from my usual Drago climbing shoes.
Oh, is he like a rock climber? Because again, if he was like an alpinist type climber, it would probably be a different story. He wouldn't be wearing climbing shoes. Those guys do use boots. Yeah, they're traveling in a file, I think mostly because just the terrain is so incredibly restrictive that you really have very little choice. Okay, so now I'm less shocked. I think he's in shape, but like hiking shape is its own, or rucking shape in the military parlance, is its own very specific set of skills, like an extremely narrow set of skills. It even doesn't translate to fitness. Like if you're a runner, it'll be good, you'll be close, but it won't be exact. You'll still feel it. Your hips and legs will need to develop some muscle mass from hiking. Yeah, if you're a rock climber, totally get it. Totally different domain of fitness. Yeah, this is also the thing that's like a huge pain. One, he is moving at a crawl. And the huge pain is that when you have a giant heavy pack, it kind of screws with your neck. So it's hard to like turn your head in different directions, right? So instead what you have to do is what that guy did, which is turn your whole body back. And you want to constantly be doing that as you're patrolling. And he probably realizes that for safety reasons, you don't want to step somewhere you can't look because that's a good way to destroy your ankle. So instead you have to stop, turn, scan your sector, keep walking. I've seen that look. Yeah, this dude is crawling. Which, don't get me wrong, I have been there and I have felt that feeling with far less gear than this. So, and far less elevation gain. I mean, look at that elevation gain. That's huge.
I've done a lot of hard shit lately, but this is hard in just a different way. Just never ending. We've been hiking for hours. We thought we're at the top, and we're just halfway. So the last few hours we've just been hiking, but it's super hot right now, running low on water. But now it looks like we're gonna climb the ridge finally. And I've kind of stopped looking for enemies, to be honest. I just feel like, yeah, if there are any enemies in the area, they're gonna deal with it. So.
Trollface says, how would you recommend training up for ruck marches? So the first step, the first step you want to do is get your ruck fitted properly. Figure out the fit that works for you. You want that waist belt to actually sit on your hips. Don't let it sit on your kidneys, right? There's a lot of tough guys who are like, men have broad shoulders. They don't need to no, get the ruck off your back. Get the ruck off of your spine, right? Your spine can carry weight, certainly, but nothing like your hips can. So get your waist belt fitted properly. Get the shoulder straps fitted properly. No one ever taught me how to do this in the military, and I really thought I was just shit at rucking until finally, as a civilian, I was like, oh, I can carry 80 pounds. I should put this stupid waist strap on and the chest strap on, and all of a sudden, it doesn't feel like I'm being stabbed in my neck, right? Once I figured that out, then rucking became so much easier for me. And so that's your first step. Second step is just to do it. Find a route that is like an unimproved trail. So like a dirt trail in a park, for example. I knew a 5-mile trail, for example, there was a time when I finished, was wrapping up my officer basic course, before I had been assigned to my unit and I had deployment orders, where there was like a possibility that I would be going to Ranger school. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to be preparing for that possibility, because like no one's worse off by being in good shape. But you definitely are worse off by getting a Ranger spot and not being in shape. So I was just like doing these training rucks every weekend, and I would put like some 80-pound weights in my bag, or 80 pounds worth of weights in my bag. And I would just strap the ruck up, waist, chest, everything feeling snug, but not tight. And I would just walk this 5-mile path, and I had a headset and mic. And I would just call my mom. I would call my brother. I would call my old friends. I would just kill time, right? And then eventually I did 1 5-mile loop, and then I would do 2, and then I did 3, and then eventually I was doing like 5. So that's what I would say. Yeah, that's the best way to do it, man. Build yourself up slowly over time, right? And especially if you have years, what you don't want to do is go hard. You always want to you want to push yourself, but if you have time, you want to make sure that what you're pushing hard on is your cardio fitness and your muscles. So if you feel like pinching sensations, pain, like sharp pain in your back or neck or hips, you want to dial it back a little bit, right? And you just want to, again, give yourself time, give your body time to adapt to this new exercise you're putting it through. Exactly. Yield T sums it up. He says, push yourself, don't break yourself. That's the perfect way to put it. And nobody can tell you what that is except you. But again, the way he's walking, right, is he's being pushed, right? He's out of breath. His heart rate's probably really elevated, but he's moving. He's not limping, right? His neck is feeling fine. Like, he's doing okay.
So I'm not focusing on myself right now. Need to save the pilot. I think this is gonna take me some time to recover from. Like, right now it feels like my batteries are really low, and I know that the mission has just started, so I'm a little bit worried. I saw you got like an update on the...
As of now, the entire Operation Meatballs, is depending on...
Operation Meatballs.
Yeah, you guys think this is a joke? Nah, you really name operations all sorts of troll stuff. We unfortunately were required to have naming conventions for the operations to help identify them. And so all of my platoon's named operations had to be named after stones. So I naturally was like, gemstones. So we had Operation Ruby, Operation Sapphire, Operation Diamond. So we would do, Star Ruby, Operation Dorite. Let's see, funniest operation names that I've heard. I'm trying to think. It's too far back, because here's the thing. The good names, right? Like Command won't let you have super goofy names unless you're in JSOC, unless you're in Joint Special Operations Command. Then they let them get away with the goofiest shit.
Who made that name?
Might have been me. It's critical for us to get to the pilot as soon as possible. As you can see in front of us, we have a really
The story is they don't have body armor.
narrow and steep ridge line. That's our only way through. It's super exposed. We're exposed to like the elements, rocks and stuff, but also from being spotted by the enemy.
What happens if we get like shot at during our climb? Do we what is it called? Return fire? Or
Yeah, we will shoot back.
shoot back? Okay, yeah.
And
So here's what's really interesting about this is that small arms fire, like along these ridge lines, it's like, where are they going to get you? Like, where are they going to position themselves to attack you? Now, indirect fire, artillery, totally plausible. But I guess it's like if you have time to pre-position, I mean, that's what we saw. We would see the Taliban set in position for 24 hours before they thought we were going to be coming to an area. They would have moles inside the Afghan security forces. And so the Afghan security forces would tell them when there was an operation coming up. They would make their best guess on our route. They would set into place. Sometimes they would see us on the infill. They'd set, and they would catch us on the exfil. So they would do different things, but they were willing to hike up, and they would hike up and pre-position their mortars and machine guns and RPGs. But again, those fights in the mountains you have to get close relative to the terrain. Like, you can't shoot at someone from an entire other ridgeline.
Because we're pretty vulnerable on that ridge.
It's gonna be a shitstorm if we get in contact on the ridge.
Yeah.
We've divided like one full rack with all the pros. So the nuts and the cams. We're gonna go as a 3. Yeah.
Is it a climbing helmet?
So it's we have another helmet, kind of similar, which is made for ballistics.
Okay.
So it's really heavy.
Yeah.
But this one is a more lightweight one.
Yeah.
The first person goes in front with the.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is interesting. So this is like a tactical mountaineering helmet. Yeah, that makes sense, because look, it's got the night vision, right? His helmet's not fitted properly, but he's got the vent holes, right? So yeah, this is like a climbing helmet.
All the protection, and then you as the second person will take it out.
Yeah.
And then.
So we're not belaying each other. I think it's going to be new to a lot of people watching this type of style. So basically, if one of you fall, I have to go low, right?
Yeah, and make sure if we fall on one side, that kind of
you basically have to fall on the other side.
Okay. Well, that's the kind of, you have to have a pretty quick reaction, you know, like, was it left, was it right, and then you just have to do it.
Yeah, and you'll see afterwards, like, maybe not using these kind of pros, but just using natural, just rocks, whatever you have, trees, and just put the rope in between.
Yeah. Also the harness is camo. That was pretty cool. I've never seen that before. And we're gonna climb with the backpacks, so that's what's gonna make.
Yeah. So what's also sort of interesting and kind of a pain about military climbing and backpacking gear is that it's all camouflaged, which means it's really easy to lose it, right? So when I go camping, right, if I don't have really bright colored gear, I have this habit of wearing cargo pants because I need to know where it is and I need it on my body. I've lost so much gear, so many lines, 550 cord, whatever, because I'm just screwing around and I put it down somewhere and then it's gone for good. And so it's just like, I have to keep it on my person. And so that's a real risk to dealing with camouflage gear.
Make it really challenging. I mean, this route isn't going to be that hard in itself. We're trying to go quick and we're trying not to be noticed, you know. So, I mean, it's a different way of moving.
when we get down there, we call for the helicopter. How long does that usually take for the helicopter to come?
Since there's a lot of enemy in the area, then it's a bigger operation, so they need multiple planes to kind of suppress the enemy before they can bring in a helicopter, which is an easier target.
Yeah, so they first have to suppress the enemy.
Okay, so this is the discussion that we had earlier.
Air Force,
and
then they can come in and save us.
Yeah,
and what do we do if we don't get a helicopter?
It wouldn't be the first time it happens. So you always plan for an emergency plans. So you always have kind of escape routes and different kinds of pickups.
Yeah.
Yep. This is exactly what we talked about. You gotta have a secondary LZ that you gotta hike your casualty down to. They probably have in one of those backpacks a stretcher where if the pilot is injured, they can put them on a stretcher and we'll stretcher them down. It can be rough.
But the pilot is, I mean, he's worth more than us, right? Because he's...
Yeah, so the education they get, and they're jet fighter pilots. So
it's a very cynical way of looking at it, but so that's how it is.
They're kind of pushing the 5 of us to help get him out.
There's also, okay, so some of this, it sounds cynical, but in the US military, like when we say we don't leave a soldier behind, like that's true to the maximum extent possible. Like the military has to be like properly defeated to leave casualties on the battlefield. As discussed, right, like in Red Wing, that's the Marcus Luttrell lone survivor operation. The QRF, the people who were supposed to come in and hit hard, they were destroyed. The entire QRF was taken out. And so that's why he got forced into that situation. And once it was just him, they couldn't even find him, right? And even then, they still did their absolute best to track him down and get him back. So all that to say, these guys, that's just the rule. That's just the expectation. You don't play this sort of math games. Like they talked about in some of the documentaries when they negotiated for the release of Bo Bergdahl, right? This was a specialist, an E4, regular infantryman, nothing particularly special about him. 13 weeks of training plus a little bit of extra. But they had special forces teams out hunting for him. They had infantry units out hunting for them. The whole military in that regional command was out looking for this guy, because that's just sort of the code of honor, and that's just the agreement that the military makes with its service members, right?
Yeah.
At least in the US. And they don't play this math where some service members are more valuable than others. It's just not done.
And that's our mission, so we just have to
follow the mission.
Congrats on the new job, Fred Mascar Ober. I hope your new job is less strenuous than these guys. I mean, you got to think 7 hours of hiking with 80 pounds. You're looking at burning, you're probably in the 5,000 to 10,000 calorie burn level at that point. Soil and Mineral Labs analyst sounds way more forgiving.
So you guys sore at all?
I don't think my legs know what they've been up to yet, so
Okay.
maybe I'll feel it later, but...
Yeah, well you were leading the way the whole way.
Interesting, these ESSIs. What's fascinating to me is that they're not polarized. Even though this is bright reflections off of sunglasses, or off of the snow, and it can cause snow blindness for sure, they still rock these ballistic glasses. But I actually think you can't get ballistic glasses and polarization, right? Something about polarizing the glasses makes them unable to be hardened.
Pretty high pace.
I thought you'd do good.
I'm fascinated by climbing barehanded. But I guess it's like you don't want anything to separate your feel of the rock. I want to know who's filming this. These drone shots are pretty cool.
Signal, or is it like, what are you looking for?
Yeah, well, I'm looking for a single person, but if he sees us, he'll confirm it with a smoke or a flare. But I'm trying to scan to see him, because he should be in the area.
Do you know what color he's wearing?
He should be wearing a flight suit. Yeah, I think I got him. Yeah, it's right by the edge there.
Do you have a way of calling him, or do we just need to go down there and check?
I think we'll try to get closer before.
Okay, so the signaling process like this, recognizing friendly and distinguishing them from enemy, is an important task, because from a distance, enemy mountaineers coming to kidnap him would look exactly the same as Norwegian army mountaineers, right? Camouflage, rifles, that sort of thing. And so popping a flare can be really dangerous because it signals to them that you're in the area. So you want to find a way to communicate that you're friendly that isn't obvious, that only another friendly will be able to detect. In the US, we most commonly use IR beacons, infrared beacons, because the Taliban and insurgent forces almost never had IR. And so you would have them either on your helmet. You would also sometimes have a little GPS emergency beacon that you could trigger. It would be more than tapping a button. It was like a two-step process. And that sent an immediate signal actually to like the Pentagon, basically, that you were a soldier in distress, a soldier isolated and in need of assistance. And it instantly pinged your GPS location, and it sent it straight to like an emergency command.
Before we do anything.
Pilots are 100% trained for these.
Yeah.
So we just got
Low tech signals that you can do. So there's not a lot of great options. Usually your best is going to be a like a VS17 panel, so like a big orange marker. You can use smoke, you can use chem lights, as long as it's agreed upon. What other signaling devices? Obviously your radio is always going to be a good one if you don't have a beacon. Yeah, and usually with pilots, there's sometimes a verification password Usually it's something that's unique to the pilot or the soldier themselves. They would ask a question that's maybe not publicly available, and that's a way of verifying identity. So it wouldn't be something like, who is your mom? Because that could be that's a matter of public record. Instead, it would be something like, sort of like what your bank passwords are. And that's how they'll make a final identity verification. Oh yeah, the other option is signal mirrors, because signal mirrors are nice because you can reflect the sun directly at a certain direction. Just like sort of how your watch can cast a light when it catches the sun, just so, a signal mirror can do that as well. And if you know they're friendlies, you can actually use the signal mirror to, well, signal to them. They'll see a bright flash that's pretty hard to miss.
Got a report about increased hostile activity in the area.
Yeah.
So we have to be extra careful, right? So we're gonna switch to the white clothes.
Yeah, so the white cams, top and bottoms.
Well, I guess we have no time to waste.
No time to waste, so
Yeah.
let's get changed.
Some more sick drone shots.
Is that smoke?
That's him.
That's the pilot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the pilot popped the smoke. It basically on the assumption maybe the pilot has, the pilot can see, like, hey, these are friendlies. I'm proximate to rescue. They are, this is friendlies. I'm going to pop this smoke to mark my location so that it's fixed. Interesting. So you can see it looks like they've ditched their rucks on the final ascent. Interesting. So the person playing the pilot is basically trying to channel an inexperienced climber. It's tough to know who they get. They may get actual military members who just aren't part of this, right? They may get actual pilots who are doing their own SEER training. They may even just get a member of their unit who's role-playing, a civilian. There's a couple of fun videos of special operations guys doing like hostage rescue or like VIP, like high-value target extraction. And it's obvious that the high-value targets are also members of the unit because they are like shredded. Like they're searching them and these guys have like six-pack abs and just like huge biceps. And you're just like, ah, yes, of course, this terrorist commander, like, Jack McSwolson here.
Is make sure you get rid of the hypothermia. We're gonna get you some shelter, heat you up, give you some warm fluids. Have you heard anything about the helicopter?
Yeah, so just got news. The old forces did not manage to suppress enemy anti-air, so there will not be helicopter for us.
So we have to make the way down ourselves?
Yeah, we need to walk down ourselves. So we need to get out of here fast.
Oh man.
Yeah, that pilot. Way later is going to be like night, unless this is, oh, right, it's daytime in Norway, right? That in the Arctic Circle, above the Arctic Circle, you can have 24 hours of daylight.
Finally. We've been walking on snow for hours.
Damn, 33 hours. That's bananas.
And we've been out for, I think it's close to 35 hours without sleep, with hardly any food. I feel really low on energy, and this is so different from all the other challenges that I've done. Like, I don't even have energy to, like, on the way down I didn't have energy to talk to the camera, and it's just...
Yeah, the calorie expenditure is wild that they must have gone through. Just unreal. 35 straight hours of hiking. You're talking 20, 40, 50, 50,000 calories. In fact, I'm going to game it out, right? This will be an estimate. Let's see. So I will use MyFitnessPal, which has pretty good estimates for this. And okay, so let's say I was to do exercise. Cardiovascular, yes. Hiking, there we go. Hiking strenuous. Minutes performed. Okay, how many minutes is 35 hours? Calculator, need you to step up for me here. So we said, okay, so it's 34 hours times 60 minutes is 2,400 minutes. Okay, minutes performed, or sorry, 2,040. Okay, so this argues that the calorie expenditure, all right, I was overkilling it a little bit. It says it's 8,000, but I don't think that's right. That's not right. Here we go. This is light hiking. Let's see. Okay, I want 10 to 20, hiking cross country, hiking, climbing hills. Okay. Still most used. Oh, browse all. That's what I want. Okay, hiking. Okay, it only gives me a 10 to 20 pound load. So, okay, minutes performed 2,040. There we go. Okay, so this is with a 10 to 20 pound load going up and down hills. You're talking about, let's see if you guys can see it there, 20,000 calories. So I would argue that with a load 3 times as much, yeah, you're talking at least about 50,000 calories burned. So it'll actually be like take a lot to get him back to normal.
I don't know, I feel like I'm completely empty right now, and I don't know, it's just this backpack is so annoying, you know? Did I mention that it's 35 kilos? I think I've mentioned that like 20 times already. Evan, you told me something funny earlier about the warmest piece of clothing in NATO.
Yeah.
What is it?
You wanna know what it is? Oh, it's this piece of kit right here.
It's a backpack.
Yeah.
Would you call this operation successful so far?
Yeah, I'd say it's been...
Okay, so right there they are taking fire. They're being ambushed. You see what they're doing is immediately returning fire. They have this drilled down to a science. That's the thing. People are always just like, oh, contact, like time, you know, no, don't yell contact. Don't return fire, then shout distance and direction. Yep, so they're throwing smoke to try to cover their extraction. A lot of smoke. Interesting. It looks like they're using maybe a laser system. This is a really unique muzzle brake here. Line means line. So they must mean a line of smoke, that they're trying to deploy a line of smoke to allow them to extract. Ditching the pack was a bad call. You see those guys kept the packs on. They may have just... Oh, no. Okay, so what they're doing is, of course, bounding to extract. That means you can see some people are set, returning fire, and some people are bounding backwards, right? So they're performing a fighting retreat.
Ild på observasjon!
Even siste.
Did you guys know that we were gonna get shot at today? Or was that a surprise?
It's always a surprise. I mean, you never know if you're gonna meet enemies. When you get tired, when you're way down coming from the mountain, or you're going to your pickup point,
Yeah.
that's when you start like getting really unfocused. And so kind of have to be switched on the whole time.
And I guess it's smart of them to test you at the end.
And this is actually what real enemies would do, like we talked about. You know, I saw it, the Taliban would watch you infill, and then they would set up an ambush on your exfil. And they knew you were canalized, you were trapped usually in the mountains on your infill. So they knew that you only had so many routes out, or one route out on your exfil. And so it was a good spot to ambush you.
Of a mission like this,
for sure.
When you're tired, and because they test your reflexes, I guess. Like
and now we're trained to, like, if we hear that we're getting shot at, something just turns on.
Yeah.
You're yelling, adrenaline starts pumping. No matter how tired you are, you don't want to get killed, right? So you shoot back and you do your best.
So I was actually instructed to not shoot if we had any contact. I was just directed to just stay put and follow the instructions. So
yeah, that's probably a safety thing.
I'm definitely not gonna look like a hero in that shot. Is there anything we could have done better?
I mean, we ended up in a contact with the enemy.
Okay.
That's never good, but we managed it well and we
It
got
was
out of there.
defeated.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just super excited. I'm just super excited for the pizza.
Yeah.
You've been telling me about the pizza, and
Oh man, yeah, when you're really hungry, you develop a real fixation on food if you've never experienced it. I remember going to, after that big camping trip that was like a suck fest because my buddy wanted to sprint home. I remember just being like, getting two of the biggest burgers at this like fast food place. They were so good.
my mouth gets like watery just from saying that word. It's been very little food and water, and I don't know how you guys do this, like not every day, but quite often.
Yeah, you get more and more used to it every time you do it.
Yeah, so thank you guys for watching.
They also have way lighter weight uniforms. Like they understand they're saving weight in every little detail.
Make sure to like and subscribe as always, and I will see you next time.
Okay, that was pretty good. That was pretty fun. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for that recommendation, Tell Ruin. Man, that was wild. That was just wild. Let's see. Yeah. We talked about them using the 416. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. What do you guys want to watch now? Trollface asks, what are some things I've seen people do to cut weight? Oh man, buckle up for this bullshit. Cutting weight sucks. It sucks. There's no easy way to cut weight. The reality is you restrict calories. That's where you're stuck with. You just have to create a caloric deficit, and sometimes a pretty huge one, because your body will slow metabolic processes in response to weight cuts. So you actually have to like cut down more and more and more. So here's sort of the protocol. You have an 8-week training camp. That's usually the ideal, right? And you've got your 8-week training camp, and the first 4, you get on diet, you run a caloric deficit. Let's say 1,600 calories a day, which is a lot because you train for hours. And you're getting your weight down, you're leaning out, but you still have enough fuel to perform at a high level, right? You're always thinking about food. but you're always thinking about food. Right? There's just no way around it, right? Your body is burning 3,000 calories and it's getting 1,500. No way, nothing you can do. Then as you get closer to weight, you sort of start to adjust the dials. And what you want to do is get within, in my case, if I was fighting 145, I would want to be about 160 by fight week. Right. So usually I would sometimes have to cut a little harder. I would drop like 1,300 calories a day going into the final 10 days. Right. So then 10 days before your fight, you're within about 15 pounds of your target weight, maybe a little more, maybe 65. And you then want to start manipulating the water levels, because it's not about actually weighing that. It's about creating, like, your body naturally has an ebb and flow to it. Like, if you were to drink a ton, you exercise and sweat out a bunch of water, you lose weight. You drink a ton of water to put it back in, you gain weight. You don't eat salt for a while, you eat a lot of salt, your body retains water, right? All the sort of normal ebb and flow. And the goal in the last 10 days is to exploit that ebb and flow. So you do that by reducing your sodium intake a lot. You are dialing back your training volume too, because your body can't really train hard on no sodium. So you drop your sodium intake to as close to zero as you can get. You drop your carbohydrate intake to as close to zero as you can get. Get some protein, get some fat. For me, I did 2 ounces of boiled chicken and 1 spoonful of a salt-free nut butter, like cashew butter, every 2 hours, full stop, for 10 days. And it sucked. It sucked horribly. But you're taking no electrolytes at all. And you're also drinking distilled water. So that distilled water is pulling even more electrolytes out of your body. And all that serves to do, first off, it creates this environment where your body is just going to shed water in order to maintain homeostasis. And then the final phase is fight day. You don't eat or drink anything, obviously. Not fight day, sorry, weigh-in day. Don't eat or drink anything, obviously. And then you go in to the sauna about 5 to 6 hours before your fight, and you start to sweat. And you may use a sauna suit, you may not, but you're trying to just sweat out as much water as possible. Now you reach a state of dehydration that is really bad, again, because you've lost 15 pounds in 24 hours. And so like you will like need someone to drive you to the weigh-ins, like you're not safe to drive, you probably pretty hard to do promotional stuff. But then you go on the scale, you make weight, and then immediately when you're off the scale, you put back some water into you. The key is to not expose your body to new foods that it hasn't seen. So you will have a little bit of water. Usually it's just regular spring water, like a capful at a time. And then you can, after an hour of that, right, then you can eat, like I would do fruit. I do watermelon particularly because it has carbs, it has water. Jacob Ling asks, is there an IV line? Yeah, when I was fighting, IVs were a standard protocol, but they're not going to stick you with an IV right after weigh-in, right? You've got promotional stuff. You're usually in like a hotel or something. And so, you would rehydrate, refeed, and you just don't stop drinking water. The rule we had was don't stop drinking water until you're pissed and clear. You'll also rehydrate with diluted Pedialyte because you need to put electrolytes back in your system. Correct. Poff brings up USADA, the U.S. anti-doping agency that works with the UFC, has made it against the rules to use an IV. Shitpost points out, lowering your levels of sodium can harm your heart. Yes, it can. And I hope it wasn't like permanent damage. But so anyway, you do all that, you sweat it out, you make weight, and you're rehydrating slowly with Pedialyte. Eventually you shouldn't add new foods to your diet. I did that at one point and I was like sluggish and I didn't feel good and my stomach was like pretty upset with me. And I realized that was probably a mistake. So what you want to do is instead basically just like introduce foods backwards. So again, you might even do like cashews and boiled chicken once, but really you want to do something simple, something you've eaten during your cut, and just increase the caloric intake. And you want to eat like every 2 hours. Just keep putting food, keep putting electrolytes, and keep putting fluids into your body. All the way up to about 2 hours before fight time. And then obviously you don't want to be like drinking a bunch of water right before you got to go fight. So anyway, guys, that's how I cut weight. That's how most of the guys in my gym cut weight. And that's pretty much how the pros have to do it. I would get stuck with an IV, usually back in the hotel room after the like promotional stuff. But you would literally be like drinking and eating with just an IV hanging off like a lamppost or something. It was pretty weird. Okay, let's see. What are we at? We're at an hour. You guys want to watch? Little Xan Deserves His Failure by Sunny V2. Flight of Icarus observes, as a delivery driver at a college town, it was weird to be doing grocery deliveries where people order Pedialyte, but that's because it wards off the effects of alcohol, hangover. Pedialyte is a great performance, and it's meant to rehydrate. So Pedialyte's designed to rehydrate babies who have diarrhea, who have GI issues, and who need to maintain their fluid and electrolyte levels. And so that's anytime you lose a bunch of water or need a bunch of water, right? They think Pedialyte's a way to go. I think alcohol, I don't know if alcohol dehydrates you in the same way. I think it makes you thirsty, but I think your body just needs the water to process the alcohol. I don't think it's because you've lost like electrolytes. All right, let's see. I want to learn why Little Xan deserves his failure. But you know what we didn't do, which we should have done? Did I post this video before I kicked it off? I can't remember, guys. Again, I try really hard to do the right thing here. Oh, here we go. Okay. So interesting. He's a climbing content creator. So my most popular. Oh man, this isn't even his military test ever. There you go. Here you go. Arctic Military Force. Wow, that was 6 months ago. I'm surprised because that got
best
recommended. Okay, here's the video. If you guys want it, if I didn't post it before, you should definitely check this guy out and subscribe to him. And here's the video we're going to be checking out now. Right, we've gone from some of the hardcores to the hardcore, a serious rock climber, professional level rock climber, and a bunch of Norwegian, like super crusty special operations lurpers. Not LARPers. LARPers are dumb, but lurpers, long range recon patrols, LARPs. LARPs hardcore, LARPs dumb.
I killed down no 1, 2, 3 for champions. I can't believe you're trolling.